Hey there everyone. Before we get into today's conversation, we wanted to ask you a quick favour. I know, we're trying to learn more about who's listening to More Than a Score. Whether you're a parent, educator, or just someone figuring out your own pathway, we want to make every episode as relevant as possible to you. So, we've got a really short survey, literally 10 seconds, 2 questions. And as a thank you, we're putting everyone who completes it into a $100 prize draw, which we'll announce live at the end of April. The link's in the show notes if you'd like to help us out, and thank you in advance.
What matters more than results? Just doing hard things, doing things that stretch you. I think we need to be scared. I think we need to have an element of fear. So again, role modeling for the kids, I want them to see that you can do hard, challenging things. And hard and challenging doesn't have to be physical, but hard and challenging as things that you don't think you can do or you don't currently have the skill set for. I just want the boys to, if they want to do something and they're a bit scared, but just to have a crack at it anyway. There was 1,000 reasons to not commit to this and just to stay where we are and just to keep, cruising. But having a crack at something that may be scary and is full of unknowns, but you work it out.
What if the path you thought you needed isn't actually the one that leads you where you want to go? In this episode, we sit down with Sam Gawenda, dad, former bricklayer, business owner, and someone who left school early, yet went on to build and sell a successful business and is now stepping into a whole new chapter of life. Sam's story challenges a lot of what we're told about success. It's not about having it all mapped out or getting the perfect score. It's about doing hard things, leaning into discomfort and surrounding yourself with the right people, and having the courage to have a crack even when you're not ready. We explore the key moments that shaped him, from apprenticeships and mentors to building a business and becoming a parent, and what he's learned about growth, identity, and what really matters. This is a conversation about choosing courage over comfort and redefining success on your own terms. Welcome to this episode of More Than a Score.
That's your stage.
So when this podcast blows up.
So everyone, we need your feedback from our poll. Would you call Laura Laws or Loz? And we obviously all know that it's Loz. So
anyone in your right mind will say Loz.
It's Loz's Lauren.
I'd also just like to point out that the guest shouldn't speak. Sorry, they didn't. You've picked the wrong guest. Everyone, it's my great pleasure to welcome the amazing Sam Gawenda, a man with a very loud, bombastic voice and spirit. But Sam, I get to do the introduction, so I can see yourself genuinely trying not to speak right now, and I appreciate you for doing that. Sam Gawenda, engaged and hands-on dad, previous bricklayer turned footballer, mortgage broker, passionate sportsman, a drummer, a podcast host of Dad Focals, some would say, including me, the life of the party, a natural host, a connector and a spirit of the community, who built a business over 16 years, recently sold it, and now is entering a new, exciting / nerve-wracking chapter. Sam Gawenda, welcome to More Than a Score.
Thank you very much for having me, Dan and Laws.
Can you sound a little bit more excited?
I was just wondering, as I mentioned, I've been listening to a few of the episodes, primarily my friends that have been on previously, and they've got really big rap sheets and like all these amazing things they've done and degrees. I'm like, what are they going to say about me? But I think you've done well.
Well, it's a tricky thing actually, because I don't want to do too much, because I wanted to we'll talk about it in the conversation, I think, around the rites of passage, because I wanted to name something about that. You're really interested in helping dads, being a dad, but also thinking deeply about dads and then how do you actually help kids. So I know rites of passage is a really big thing. That's a passion of yours. Yeah. But I didn't want to put it all in.
No.
But now we've already built it in. Hey, Loz, or Laws, but particularly Loz.
I almost vomited saying it the other way. You're like,
We're very mindful as well. Like, we're going to keep track of the percentage of talking time, aren't we, Loz, today?
You can talk as much as you like, Dan. I'm not offended that you talk more than me.
We're already going off scripted, right?
Yep.
So let's bring it back. Let's be professional.
Yes.
Okay, Sam Gawenda. So the way that we normally start is when you think back to the end of your time at school, were you happy with your score?
Now, I knew this question was coming and I thought about it. I'm like, how am I going to answer this considering, and look, I haven't gone through all of your episodes, but I don't know, have you had someone on here that hasn't finished school yet?
We've had people that haven't received a score.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because...
Oh, no, and Gwen hadn't finished. She didn't go into A-levels. She finished at 16.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have had a couple that either, did not get a score or didn't go on to further, like that final to get the proper scores.
To actually, because I guess my schooling background, I imagine, is probably a bit different to most of the guests you've had on, which is I finished year 11 and went into a trade. So was I happy with my score is an interesting question because I didn't get a score and, we'll never know, I guess, how I would have gone. Does that answer that question?
And was I happy with my score? I didn't get one. And I think you're one of the reasons why we're so excited to do the podcast is because, so saying I didn't get a score, it hasn't actually stopped you in any sort of way from creating a career, a path, success in whatever form it looks like. And so that's why I think it's so exciting to have the different answers. And that's why we always start with that question.
Yeah.
Now, something that you did say was when we're going through your pre-pod form and knowing you two, you've said that the end of school was a non-event. So what did that feel like at the time? And tell the listener just a little bit about that story.
Yeah. After you guys asked me to come on, and as I said, I've been listening to a few of your other guests, your other episodes, I've been reflecting back on my time at school. And, you hear these people talk about they had this one teacher and they could name them by name. And they said this one thing to them, which they still carry to this day. And I just don't remember. I don't remember anywhere through my school life having a teacher that really empowered me or instilled this great confidence in me that I could achieve great things. And I'm sure there was things, maybe I didn't pick up on them or maybe I can't remember them. But school for me, I wasn't a bad student. Academically, I didn't struggle. Socially, I didn't struggle. I never got really in any trouble. It was just, I don't know. I'm the youngest of four. My dad was a teacher. He had a couple of other jobs. Mum never worked. So I think I never had a lot of pressure from my parents, whether it was, and I'm sure it'll come up, a lot of my upbringing, my teenage years was based around sport, but I never had any pressure of them from in sport or at school. The one rule we had was if you're leaving school, you have to go into an apprenticeship. That was probably one rule I can remember. But I don't know, school for me, I remember words of empowerment, and I can remember back to, again, I was thinking about this in preparation. There was a primary school teacher, Mrs. Williamson, and I remember I would have been grade 5 and we were playing school footy, and she put me up to go and try out for the Vic Schoolboys. And I remember her saying to me, she loved watching me play and I had a certain way of playing and she thinks I'd go really well. I can remember that from, what would that have been, 30 odd years ago. But I actually can't remember anything academically or even from a career perspective that, it's sort of sad in a way.
I was sorry to interrupt you, but I was actually going to ask you, was there a coach then? Was there, the fact that you didn't have someone maybe in an academic setting, but were there people that you saw as mentors, teachers, coaches that would give, you were getting it from outside
of school, and the main one is based around sport, and whether it was playing for local teams or representative teams or whatever it might be. But the other crazy thing is I've never struggled with self-belief or confidence or anything like that. I think just in an academic school setting, I can't think of feeling like on the receiving end of empowerment, which, I don't know. I don't know what to sort of only, I just don't think about school that much. So coming right back to what was it like leaving, it's, so I grew up in Kilsyth, which is foot of the Dandenongs, and it's a very blue collar area. And I went to the local primary school. I think out of 31 grade 6 kids, 28 of them went to the local state school. So it was pretty much everyone just picked up and moved a few hundred metres up the road. And probably the other thing is I tend to hang out with kids that are a bit older than me. So by the time I was in year 11, I would say that the majority of my mates had left school, had finished school to go into apprenticeships. So it was sort of it was nearly par for the course. But what had happened was I was playing under 18. So in under 18s, this is footy, AFL, you go into the senior club. So you no longer train and play with the juniors, you train and play with the seniors. And that had a huge impact on my life. Talk about role modelling, some good, some not so positive. But I got a guy from the footy club asked if I wanted to do some work for him. He was a bricklayer and asked if I wanted to do some work for him. It was September holidays of whatever year when I was in year 11 was. So I said, yeah, because I thought this guy was, senior, like he was part of the senior club. I looked up to him. He's offered me some work. I could make some money. I've always been motivated, and from a really young age, I've always been motivated by earning money and by working. And I went and spent 2 weeks with him. And I remember thinking, this is cool. I'm getting paid to push around bricks and, push around wheelbarrows. I'm getting paid to go to the gym effectively. And then towards the end of the year, he offered me an apprenticeship. Bricklaying was never something that I aspired to be or in the family or anything like that. I've often said that I think trades choose you. You don't choose the trade. And in my case, that's absolutely what happened. So then, I said, hey, Mum, Dad, Dave's offered me an apprenticeship, and said, all right, well, as long as you're going into apprenticeship and you're going to see it out. So that's what I did. So then, leaving school, it wasn't a big hurrah. I probably didn't even know. I don't even know if I actually knew by the time school finished. It might have been a decision made over the Christmas break.
You said that in your pre-pod form.
Yeah,
It was
okay.
almost something you made in the January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't like, I just didn't go back. It wasn't like celebrating that today's my last day. It was just a non-event, which also is maybe a little bit sad. But
it sounds like you could see the path that you wanted to go on, and your parents gave you the support because you were following that rule of, if we're going to step away, we want to make sure there's something else that we're going towards.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
What do you think it is about the draw of sport to help the listener really get a sense of you about your love and passion for sport, but particularly around footy? So what is the draw card for you when it comes to sport and footy?
Yeah, I think at the time I just loved playing anything I could get my hands on. So I played a lot of football, a lot of cricket. In my younger days, I played a lot of table tennis, which is random, but there was a table tennis stadium near where I grew up, and Dad used to play a bit. So I played a representative level of that. And, I stopped playing that when I was about 14 because it wasn't so cool to be a table tennis because they played on Friday night.
What do you mean?
Yeah, it wasn't so cool when you're in high school, But anyway, look, I think on reflection, why I was so drawn to sport was because it was something I excelled at. It was something where, I got positive reinforcement. I got, whether it was awards or, selective teams or whatever, and just really the confidence that it gave me. Also, I am drawn to community and footy clubs in particular. Like, it was just my home away from home as a junior, but then in seniors as well. Like, it was a real community. And again, some for better and worse. To dovetail really quickly into the rites of passage thing, for a 16-year-old young man going into a senior club and looking for outside role models, coupled with starting an apprenticeship, you get introduced to things that you probably shouldn't be getting introduced to as a 16-year-old boy.
So either way, you're getting role models, but positive or negative.
Positive. There's some great stuff, but there's certainly some stuff that, I certainly wouldn't be introducing a 16-year-old to. So that's the other thing, Orion. And so jumping back, the other thing I thought about, thinking about today and preparing for today was, I wonder if school didn't feel so impactful to me because of how impactful an apprenticeship is. I just wonder in contrast, because you go from, being a year 11 or whatever, so a teenager having fun, mucking around with your mates, whatever, and then all of a sudden you're a man, like you're hanging out with men, and this is hard physical labour, and this is back, the best part of 25 years ago. I haven't been on a job site for a long time, but I'm tipping they're probably a little bit more left-leaning maybe than what they were back then. Yeah, but I think they'd probably be a little bit more of a safer place than what they were that long ago. And I just remember waking up, getting picked up, so I didn't have a license yet, sleeping on the way to the job site, working my butt off all day, coming home, eating, sleeping, eating, and then going back to and then going to bed. And that was just rinse and repeat for probably 2 years. So not to mention all the influences by the older men and stuff you're hanging around. So I don't know. I think maybe the apprenticeship just had such a big impact on my life. It was such a contrast that maybe that's why school seems less. So maybe, I don't know.
And
Hypothesizing.
It's interesting because you're saying you had that grade 5 teacher that helped you, that gave you that little bit of encouragement around footy, sort of channeled that. But there was a moment you said, I think also in your pre-pod form, about Box Hill, getting into Box Hill Secondary opened up something for you. So you didn't have an individual, but there was something about that school. So what was that?
Yeah, well, that was probably... Yeah, I think the question might have been your proudest moment, and I think it's still... So basically, long story short, was I was going through it's the Eastern Ranges. It's still around today. It's basically, once you're playing under 18s, that's where the kids get drafted from. So it was like a precursor to getting up to that level.
And it's a feeder then towards like AFL opportunities and different clubs.
Yeah, that's right. And I went through that process. Anyway, Box Hill Senior, it's a senior school, so it's really year 11 and 12, but they have a year 10 program as well. Look, I'm assuming it's still the same today. This was, when I went. And Box Hill, they have accelerated programs, and sport. So they've got a really big basketball, football, and tennis program. And then they had other sort of arts, so music and stuff like that. So I guess it was still counted as a state school, but it had accelerated programs for certain things. Anyway, they presented at an Eastern Ranges night. And I remember sitting there with Mum going, and I just went to the local state school. I would have been year 9 at this stage. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. You get to do football as a part of school. Like, how good is that? And I remember being there, sitting there, and I don't think I'd ever been as excited for school before. And yeah, and sure enough, I went, and I remember planning for, because back then they only let 60. There was only 60 year 10s got in, and I want to say there was something like 300 that applied. So 60 got in, and I remember preparing for it. So it was obviously not just based on your football ability, but it was based on school. And so I prepared all my report cards. I prepared all my my achievements in sport. And I put a portfolio together, and I remember going and presenting it to, it was the principal and maybe the year 10 coordinator from memory. And it's funny, it's probably the most effort I put into anything at school. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, I got accepted. And I had a mate that tried out at the same time, and he didn't get accepted, which sucked for him, but it also made me realise, I've had a crack at something and I've succeeded. So that was really cool. That was really cool, actually. I don't think about that too much. But that was a big step, because Box Hill, I had to catch a bus to get there. And then you're with kids that are from all over the state, not just from your local, just the local area. And yeah, it was really cool. There was no uniforms. You called the teachers by first name. There was no bells from memory, if that's right. I don't think there was bells. You just had to get to class on time. So it was really that step closer to, university, or just more flexibility than a usual high school. Yeah, it was really awesome. There was no problems at all with Box Hill. It was just, as I said, towards year 11, and then this opportunity to get an apprenticeship came up, and it was sort of just, right, why not?
Were you excited? Were you as excited about the stepping forward into that pathway to the apprenticeship as you were in year 9 when you sat there hearing about Box Hill and what it could open up? Was there an excitement for you too when you had Dave say, "Yeah, hey, do you want to come do this for me?"
It's a good question. Probably. I can't answer. I can't remember, but I think I was excited. I was, like I said, I've always been, even from a young age, my old man wore a Christmas job, and I used to go and work with him and get paid some cash. I've always been very motivated by not just, yes, the income for sure, but by earning my own money, but also I think just being a part of a team and working. So I would say I probably was, but I don't know.
You said, because listening to what you're saying, there seems to be a thread there about, really, you even use the words earning my own money, a thing about. So I'm interested to hear about it's not about necessarily the money, but it's about you being able to earn your own sort of
It
thing.
seems like this element of like responsibility and independence.
Yeah.
That's what that's giving you.
Yeah, and a real drive as well for when you see something, that's what you're going towards.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, when I say my own money, I guess that can make you sound like you come from wealth, which I certainly don't. You know, we never went without, but we didn't. Like I didn't think I was going to go to Box Hill even if I got accepted, because it was going to be more expensive for the family. So public transport, and there was school fees where the state school there obviously wasn't. So, you know, predominantly my dad makes the financial decisions. So to his credit, Mum would just be super supportive of us. But yeah, to his credit, he sent me. So it wasn't, when I say my own money, not to say that I was getting given a lot, but just, and I was very ambitious as a young guy, as a teenager and through my 20s. And I knew that I was going to have to earn, if I wanted certain things, I knew that I was going to have to earn it myself.
It's so funny hearing your perspective, because mine was about you being really proud of doing a thing around like I'm making this thing, I'm making the money to be able to choose and work towards that path that you sort of have there as well.
Well, I just think growing up in my family and the way this is a whole another story, but my old man, his parents were Holocaust survivors, so he you know, his upbringing is very hard for us to comprehend, right? But his upbringing and his relationship with money it's bizarre, to be honest. But growing up, it's very much a scarcity mindset, which is understandable given, you know, what his parents lived through and that getting passed on to him. But when I think about my childhood, I think there was always this feeling of scarcity, and money was so limiting. So to be able to not feel like you have to count every dollar and to have that real scarcity mindset, I wouldn't have thought of it like that at the time, but to have the freedom to be able to do things and make decisions. And like I don't see myself as a materialistic person, but to have a nice house and to have a nice car, my old man still drives the same. It's about 30 years old. He's banged up Ford that I remember when we got it, and he's still driving around in it, even though he doesn't need to, you know, but it's just.
There's this theory I heard, I listened to talking about the pizza theory, and it's, are you the kind of person that orders more pizza, or you're the kind of person that orders just enough pizza? And it often comes from that child that lived in a scarcity mindset, that they will always order more, because if you have more, you don't have to worry about having not enough. Yeah. And I feel like it's just an interesting perspective, the way that these sorts of things come through in our lives and we don't think about it, but it's like something that's just sat here. Yeah. As you say, like you had ambition. The ambition, it sounds to me, is freedom to decide how you want to live the life without having to make a choice based on not having something.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. And that's why, you know, right back to your question around the excitement to start the apprenticeship, I think you can trade out. It just happened to be bricklaying, but I think it was the door into, well, adulthood, but my working life, which meant, you know, starting to build career and you know, wealth, I guess, at a point. So income and to start making decisions.
So given all that, so you've finished up end of year 11, January, you then let the school know, I'm actually going into this apprenticeship. You start your bricklaying apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Then there's an interesting thing that occurs, and I thought I'd just lay out sort of a bit of the journey. Please jump in and tell me if I get this wrong.
Okay.
All right.
It's interesting.
So I'm slightly vague within it too. So you then decide to travel at some point after you get into your bricklaying, and then you decide to travel all the way over to WA with your then girlfriend, now wife, for an interview, which then leads into you falling into mortgage broking, which then leads into you building up a really successful business over 16 years, which then leads to you recently selling the business and taking 8 months off on a lovely travel around Australia with the family. You said that you fell into mortgage broking. And years ago, I remember you telling me a story about something that you did when you were a bricklayer, where you spoke to the other guys on site. Do you mind sharing that story?
Yeah, I'd been bricklaying at that stage. I'd finished my apprenticeship, I think, and I was bricklaying for 5 years in total, and the apprenticeship of that is 3. And after I finished my apprenticeship, I definitely felt like, you know, I sort of made a promise to Mum that I would finish an apprenticeship. And then once I finished it, I was working out whether I thought it was for me long term. And one of the things I did, which again, I probably didn't realise I was doing it at the time, But I went and I spoke to all the individual blokes that I was working with. I was in a decent, I reckon there would have been 10 guys in, they called them bricky gangs, actually. And
A bricky gang.
a gang of brickies.
Yeah.
So the gang was about 10.
Collective noun.
A clearly get out.
And I spoke to them all, like not one after one, but just over a period of probably a couple of months, because there's times where you just be working one-on-one with someone. And I asked them all the same question, which was, if you could have your time again, would you be a bricklayer? And 100% of them said no. And for me at that time, it would have been 20 odd. And I just thought, geez, like if that's, number one, if that's not a telltale sign that, you know, what is. But I also sort of concurrently to that had a feeling that I feel like I can do, and there's no disrespect to bricklayers or tradesmen, but I felt like I, not do something more is probably not the right word, but do something, get a little bit more out of myself, more fulfilling, or even just something that's more aligned to my strengths. That was probably the time of it. No, I need to work out a way to get out of bricklaying. So the first thing I did, and I don't know if I've ever told you this, but the one thing you missed out in there was I went and did a fitness instructing course at Box Hill TAFE. So that's the way I thought I was going to go with it. And I did the ticket and I started working with some clients and working around casually in some gyms. And that's when I learned the lesson where I think you got to be mindful of turning a passion into a career, because I've always been into fitness and in and out of gyms and all that stuff. And I realized that that wasn't the career path for me. Yeah. And then, I mean, I guess the follow-up question is, how do I fall into mortgage broking?
It's like you're a podcast host.
Yeah. I read your mind. But yeah, long story short, I bought a property with a mate, and Matt had entered the workforce at this stage, and because he went down the university route, and he was working for a guy named Chris, and Chris's brother was a mortgage broker in Perth. So Matt and I bought the property. Chris says, hey, why don't you guys use my brother in Perth? We use Andrew, his name is, and Andrew sorts our loan out for us. And then Andrew comes over to Melbourne, and talk about the universe giving you signs. Andrew came over to Melbourne, and him and Chris and Matt were going to go for a night out. And it was Friday, and Matt calls me and said, hey, Andrew's over and he wants to take us out to say congratulations on buying the house.
How old are you at the time?
So I would have been 21.
Yep.
Playing footy, and I took my footy really seriously. It was just local footy, but I took it really seriously. And I said, no, I can't go. I'm not going to go out drinking for a game of footy. That afternoon, I cut my hand. Literally, and I've still got the scar. Went to the medical centre. They stitched me up. I'm like, well, I can't play footy tomorrow. I might as well go for a night on the tear. So went out, met Andrew for the first time face to face, and it was over dinner after about 3,000 bourbon cokes that he said that we started talking about where I'm at and what I want to be doing. And he said, call on Monday. And if you give me a call on Monday, I'll take it that you're serious. And so sure enough, according on Monday, I think he thought, and we talk about this a lot, and Andrew, I caught up with him and we're over there recently. He's still a great mate and mentor of mine. I called him on Monday and he said, all right, if you do X, Y, Z, I'll give you a crack. So I did X, Y, Z, and we bought a caravan, and Mel and I, and we drove over to Perth. But when I got there, he hadn't talked to his business partners. To your point about saying it's an interview, I'm like, and I did chuck the trowel in the back of the car just in case I needed to lay a few bricks, because the plan B was going to work in the mines or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I rocked up and I had an interview with him and his two business partners, and
So there was no set interview. You got there and you just...
It was very... No, like I think that's the first time they'd probably heard of it. Andrew goes, and that's the kind of bloke he is. He's going, I've got a young fella coming in that's looking for a job. So I went in and after the fact, Andrew said to the one of them had a bit of an issue or something, and he goes, the bloke's just packed up his life and driven across the country. Like, is that enough of it? And at the time, I didn't think that much of it. I just saw it as an adventure. But now, if I had a young person ring me and say, hey, I want a job with you, I'm going to move over from Perth, you'd be giving them a job before they get here, wouldn't you?
I was just going to ask you, what do you think Andrew saw in you on that night out?
Yeah.
To actually go, like, give me a call.
Yeah.
What do you think it was?
Yeah. Look, his background, he's a carpenter by trade. And the way he got into mortgage broking was he moved to Perth and lived next door to one and ended up working for him. So definitely Andrew saw a fair bit of me in himself, but I'd had a fair bit of dealings with Chris, his brother, and I guess probably just saw a young guy that was hungry and and we had a great relationship. I worked under Andrew for about 4 years when we were in Perth, and he was my mentor and role model, and he's had a huge impact. So that period of my life, that period of our lives, myself and Mal's, I was playing a lot of footy and doing a lot of dumb things that 20-year-old blokes do. And so moving over to Perth just broke the nexus, not just from a professional standpoint, but just where I was at personally. So it really helped me recreate myself. So yeah, my time over in Perth was absolutely life-changing, both personally and professionally.
All because you made a phone call on a Monday.
Yeah. Well, cut my hand. I don't know. If I didn't have cut my hand and gone out for that dinner, I don't reckon it would have happened, which just, which blows me away. And then we came back, and I actually then went into business with Chris and Matt. So the business was already there, and I created the mortgage broking arm, and that's the business.
What was the business originally before that?
Just financial planning.
Got it.
And then I came back and then created the mortgage broking arm within the business, and that's the business that I just exited in July last year, 25.
And Sam, that's the thing that I was really interested in, was around, like, I love that sentence that you just said. You're like, and so I just came back and then I just got this mortgage broking arm of the business to become part of this other business.
Yeah.
I think the fact that you've had 16 years of creating a business, using all these skills and then forming it, and then also successfully exiting and selling, given all that you've learned over that 16 years, what have been the most helpful skills that you've drawn upon for you to be as successful as you were?
I don't know how you put it to a skill, but I think what I've done quite well is my instinct to connect with people that are going to put you on the right path and have your back and are going to do the right thing by you. I think I've done really well. I think I've got a good instinct around people and around people that I want to spend time with that are going to get the best out of me, is probably a more succinct way of putting it. And as soon as I met, like Matt, going right back to Matt, we started playing footy together at about 18, and I gravitated towards Matt. And then Matt started working for Chris, and I gravitated towards Chris. And then Chris's brother Andrew, I gravitated towards him. I think, and then there's been lots of examples of that before them and then after them as well. I don't know how you put that down to a skill, but I would say it's having just an instinct. It's because I think more than any skill, your relationships are what is going to hold you in best stead.
Yeah.
I think you can have all the skills in the world, but if you don't have people that you can lean on for advice and for support and can open up doors for you, then I think you're going to struggle.
So there's an openness that you have to lean in and ask. Do you ask the person, or do you just naturally sort of just keep inquiring? It sounds like you're quite a curious person. You want to find out, you put yourself out there to actually build that connection with them.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's not necessarily about there's something that I can get out of this person, but if spending time with this person can make me better and I can learn from them, then I'm going to spend as much time with that person as I possibly can. So a great example of that is Glenn, someone that has had a huge impact on my life over the last 5 years. And I could do a whole podcast episode talking about Glenn, but so we're currently on a gap year and we're living out of a caravan. And I met Glenn through the gym, and I first started spending time with him and his family. I'm like, what is with this family, this connection there? It just changed my paradigm of what people's relationship with their teenage kids are. And it's like, I'm seeing that, and I am a parent and I want those kind of relationships. So I'm going to spend as much time with Glenn as I can because I want to learn from him. And that's just one element. He's also been really successful in business, and and I do hope that I can give back and that I can not just take, but I can give another perspective. Or I guess another thing that I don't know, this might be a question for later, but the skill, I think my strength, or when I'm at my best, is when my energy is high and when I can be in, whether it's a one-on-one or in a group of people, and I can provide a positive energy to a group. I think that is one of my strengths. So I hope that when I'm with people and I'm learning and I am absorbing, I'm also giving back and helping them as well, which I think all just somehow ties into that relationship piece and creating.
There's something that seems to be emerging. I had to put my hand up because I'm mindful of me not talking too much.
Don't be silly. Don't be silly.
Yes, it's no, but it sounds like you said at the very start when you were a kid at school, you love playing with the older people too.
Yeah.
And then throughout your time, you've always been seeking out older people or people of different ages to help guide or support or just sort of add that extra bit to you. And then even then we said, what sort of skills do you need? And really your skill is being able to surround yourself with a really supportive network. And it's not transactional. It's about learning, getting guidance, and you being open to being guided by different people. So my question is, when you think of all the really influential people, what are the common traits that you look for or that you find you naturally gravitate towards? So what are the common trends you see across the people?
I reckon it's a great observation about, spending time with people, probably sort of the next step as to where I want to get to, even at a young age, I guess. Probably, I don't know, things that I admire now, which is probably different when I was younger, but the things that I admire in people now is people with great integrity, probably people that hold great relationships that, and they can be professional relationships, personal relationships, intimate relationships. Certainly, parenting is a big focus of mine, as I guess most parents of young kids would say as well. But I look at people that hold great relationships on different levels with different depths as well. And that's something I look at really admirably. And it's like, well, how do you do it? Like, what do you do? And try to emulate that as much as possible. It's interesting now because it's a fascinating time to be doing this podcast because, I turned 40 at the end of this year. We've exited this business we've been in for a long time, and we're literally at a crossroads of what does the next 10 years, I'm sort of looking at it as a 10-year chunk, leading up to my 50s. What does it look like for myself and Mel and the boys? And, I was saying off air, but we've just bought this hobby farm in the, up the road there, which coincidentally we can see from this studio. But it like complete lifestyle, like throwing caution to the wind and just completely, it wasn't even on the card. So you sort of drew that, leaving school, bricklaying, mortgage broking, business. This sort of feels like an extension of that. We've sold our business. We've done this half lap around Australia, which we're still currently on this gap year. And now we've made a decision to completely change our lives. So yeah, it's just a real fascinating time. I think if we were doing this podcast in another 10 years and we're going through these big milestones, right now we're currently in this real transition period. And I think one of the big decisions for me was I do quite a bit in the men's mental health stuff in terms of as a participant, go along to a lot of men's health retreats or gatherings, whatever it might be. This was only recently, and there was quite a few people, either men in their 40s or just outside of, and talking about how their 40s, they had all these great intentions, and I'm paraphrasing, but this was my interpretation. They had all these great intentions for their 40s, and they're just going so quick, or they went so quick. And I reckon without making this big shake up, I could be here in 10 years' time looking back, just going, where'd our 40s go? We had fun, we had some nice holidays, but where have we grown and where have we progressed and developed? And I reckon just staying in the status quo would have been a little bit too comfortable. So part of this, yes, it's exciting to be, having a farm essentially with some animals, but it's also more I'm chasing that progression and that growth, which is super important to me, which I felt like I've probably lacked for the last few years.
If the next 10 years goes well, what will you have focused on?
If it goes well, what have I focused on? Having a house to live in would be one thing because this property on board's vacant. No, look, if it goes well, right up the top of the pyramid for me is my relationship with Mel. That would be as strong as it is now, if not stronger. And then not too far under that would be our, being mine and Mel's relationship with the boys. The property up in Red Hill is so far down the line from that. That is really, this property, this lifestyle change is just an enabler to create for us as a family and for the boys that are going to be going through their teenage years, an opportunity for them to develop and grow. If we're here in 10 years' time and the property's a success and everything looks great and it's, it's done all the things we expect to do, but my relationship with Mel or the boys is shot, well, then it's a failure. Whereas if that falls in a heap and we're solid, then I think that's success.
How do you intend to do those things?
Yeah. Yeah. So
It's like she's a coach.
I know. It's like a therapy session. It's hard.
Coaching, we're future focused.
This is hard.
Not trying to solve your problems.
Because it's just, well, I also do know that you've done a lot of work in the rites of passage space, in the mental health, like men's mental health space. So you're obviously taking steps to really gain a clear understanding of who you are, how you want to show up, and the kinds of things that your boys are going to be encountering relatively soon. So my hope, I suppose, is that you do have some ideas already of how you want to do these things.
I think a part of it, and hopefully I'm answering your question here, Lewis, but a part of it, of this decision to buy the land, is we've been on the road since July, so, we're 8 months or something, and seeing the boys' growth without the time pressure of everyday life, of school and of all the sports that they were doing before we left, and realizing that you really don't need that much to be comfortable and content. So I see this property on one hand as an extension of this lifestyle that we've been living for the past little bit, but also definitely an element in there for me is I want them to see me. So if we go right back to when I was a kid, I mentioned working with my dad at the Christmas job he had. What I saw then was my dad's amazing work ethic. He just worked when he was on, and it was nearly tunnel vision, but he would just work his ass off, morning till night. And that was something that I definitely carried with me. And I think that's what's helped me with my, my careers that I've had, is just the underlying foundation is I'm just going to work hard. Really hard.
I think boomers were good like that. They noticed that, didn't they?
Yeah.
Work ethic.
100%. And it's but to the point is my kids haven't seen me. Like it's not even has to be physical work, but for the last few years, as I was sort of, I guess I was subconsciously preparing for an exit of the business, which I didn't know was coming, but it's great. It's amazing to live a lifestyle where you're working from home and you're at all the drop-offs and all the pickups and all the things. But I don't think I'd actually role modeled hard work. So what I envisage, the next 5 years and some, but just to get the property to where it needs to be, they're going to see, and they're going to have to help with physical labor. And there's something about that which I think is going to be really important to their growth. So part of this is actually the grind, but the hard work that is going to need to go into it. I think, or my gut tells me, that's going to have huge benefits to the boys and their development over the next. Well, it's not even the next 5 years. It's probably forever, because even once the property's established, we're still going to be having animals and you're still running a hobby farm or whatever. So I think that's going to be good for them. I hope that's my hope for that. I can't even remember what the question was, but I cannot answer it.
No, I just think listening to you've given another piece. So I'm always really mindful of the person that's listening. What can they then take and think, oh, how does this apply to me?
Yeah.
And you just gave a really lovely nugget of gold, which is, so you choose to bring your work ethic. So you're aware, I'm in control of the way that I choose to work. You choose to seek out and get support from a variety of people as well. And then you also choose to actually go talk to the people and ask them and inquire, and you choose to be curious. And all of those things have actually contributed to the successes that you've had.
Yeah.
The question that I'm wondering is, and it's so awesome that we started with you finishing at year 11, you said, I didn't get a score. So what matters more than results to you?
What matters more than results? Certainly one thing is, and again, this property is a case in point, but just doing hard things, doing things that stretch you. I think we need to be scared. I think we need to have an element of fear. And because again, this property is exciting, but it's also scaring the crap out of you, financially, the work, the unknown. But you go back to when we left for this trip, I've got no experience forward driving, no experience caravanning. And then you take off and you drive around Australia, and then you work it out. Again, role modeling for the kids, I want them to see that you can do hard, challenging things. And hard and challenging doesn't have to be physical, but hard and challenging as things that you don't think you can do or you don't currently have the skill set for. I just want the boys to, if they want to do something and they're a bit scared, but just to have a crack at it anyway. There was 1,000 reasons to not commit to this and just to stay where we are and just to keep, cruising. But having a crack at something that may be scary and is full of unknowns, but you work it out.
And if someone is sitting in their car listening or they're going for a walk now, like what would be the first tips or advice that you'd give them to lean in to do something, to help maybe pass on work ethic or role model? What would you say?
Yeah, I think you've got to focus on the vision, not on the process. So maybe that's a better way of answering the question. I think people probably sick of hearing about this property, but if I think about all the things I'm going to have to do to get it to this point, you're going to be overwhelmed and you're probably not going to do it at all. But if you focus on how amazing this is going to be when we achieve this, and there's baby sheep running around and the boys are riding their motorbikes and Mel and I are having a pash overlooking the view of the bay, that's the stuff, right? But that if you're not focusing on the little bits, that's the stuff. It's like, all right, well, that's the vision. That's going to keep me moving. That's what's going to keep me moving forward. And I'll just deal with anything that comes up. Yeah, if we focus too much on dealing with council and architects and, I just don't, I think you'll get paralysis by analysis and you'll just never take that first step.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. But it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
It'll be worth it. I am almost imagining you be able to have like one of those old school working bees. Be like, hey, I want to create this. Does anyone have an idea? You can jump into your group WhatsApp and be like, hey guys, this is what we want to make. Don't you reckon there'd be heaps of people who'd be like, I'll come. My kids will be like, you could actually create a really great opportunity for your community as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, geez, Laws, you must be a coach or you must be, a podcast host, because another part of it is the rites of passage stuff, which I'm sure we're going to circle back to at some point. But this property, actually, one of my visions for it is to be able to do camps up there. Cool. So there's about, there's half of it is paddock and the other half is bushland. And the bushland there's some perfect spots to set up some tents and do some of the learnings and some of the exercises that are built in. And it's not just rites of passage. It's just my focus as a man is men's mental health, but it's just mental health full stop. So I think we're going to have an opportunity to provide something to the local community, I'm hoping. So,
which I was going to say, it's less about, not that it's less about, but it sounds like it's actually about community, and the way that you're doing that is through rites of passage.
Yeah.
So for the person listening, give them the brief summary. What is it like? Yeah. What is a rite of passage from your perspective?
Yeah.
And then share with them the vision of, if this is going well, why it matters.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is a rite of passage?
Yeah.
And then pretty much, why do they matter?
Yeah. Look, rites of passage is about, if you look at Indigenous cultures and tribes, go out to wherever people are living in a more non-Western way, there is typically a point in sometimes women as well, but I think my understanding is it's more apparent for boys that when they are transitioning to manhood, there is a specific ritual that tribe have where the boy goes through, and then they are no longer seen as a boy in the tribe, they are seen as a man. And I was lucky enough to spend some time with an Indigenous leader in Upper Kakadu, and he was telling me about when he went through rites of passage. I think he called it going bush, and it was basically
when they did go through law.
And it was, I think he was 13 odd, and it was based on maturity level, not age. And he went bush for 9 months, and he's out there, he's learning all their songs, he's learning their culture and their history. And when he is matured, I guess this is how this is my interpretation of it all, he gets welcomed back into the tribe as a man. And, one of the things that blew my mind was what he told me is before he was welcomed back into the tribe, the elders went to his mum and said, hey, you no longer are the guardian of this boy. If he wants to drink, if he wants to smoke, that's his decision. He's a man. So yes, you're his mum, but you're not his leader. We are as elders. And that just blew me away. So then he's no longer hanging out with the boys, he's hanging out with the men, he's got men responsibilities. And in Western life. It's just not how it goes. You know, our teenage boys are going through school. Let me talk through my perspective. When I was going through that stage, your body is changing. You feel different, but you're still getting told what to do, whether it's from your mum or your dad or the teachers at school. You still feel like you're treated like a kid, but you physically feel different, and it's just really confusing. And that's when often boys start looking at, you know, outside influences, role models. So just trying to weave some of those learnings into the way that we're raising our kids. And again, I'm a father of 3 boys as well, hence it's of great fascination to me.
It's like and really what you're talking about there is initiation as well, like going through this thing of you're seen as a boy, then at the other end of it, you're now seen and treated as an adult man or as a man.
As a young adult.
Like some sort of change.
Exactly. And where it's really interesting, because I've done quite a bit of work with the Rites of Passage Institute, which I know Kate, a previous guest, referenced, because we've sort of been on this journey together. Arna Rubinstein, who is the founder of it, he's an amazing man. He was the Father of the Year the Australian Father of the Year last year. He's done incredible work. But he talks about such a big part of it is that it's actually getting the parents and sometimes the mothers particularly on board, because these boys go away, they do this initiation. It's not to say that in 5 nights you come back and you're a man, but it's certainly the transition and the start into adulthood. The boys come back from the camp and the first thing the mums do is tell them to go put your dirty washing in the laundry. And it's like they've climbed up the staircase, but then within an instant they're taken a step back down a run. So they actually do a thing with the mums and sons beforehand, and it's really just about the mums letting go, you know, to let this boy blossom and move forward. So yeah, I could talk about this all day. I think it's all my boys without a doubt. I'm actually taking Sonny up to one. It's just an overnight one for younger boys later on this year. But my vision for the property is not, I don't think I'll be doing the full, because it's a big thing. It's 5 days. There's 50 participants, you know, fathers, sons. They run a really amazing professional program up there. I guess what I'm sort of thinking is more just fathers and sons, and maybe it will branch out into women and girls as well, but fathers and sons just having camps. Let's get 10 dads and 10 boys. Let's go up into the bush. Let's have fires. Let's be boys, be men, you know, throw rocks, have some archery stuff, I don't know, go on some hikes, but also weaving in some of the deeper conversation, which I think is, from my perspective, the thing that's missing the most. I volunteered on one of these Rites of Passage programs. It was the one that Kate actually went with Indy as participants, and I was a volunteer. And one of the biggest takeaways for me was, it wasn't just about introducing the boys to these deeper conversations. It was the first time a lot of the men had ever spoken vulnerably in a group with strangers around some really sometimes heavy stuff. And I've personally felt and experienced the benefit of just getting around in an environment which is different to your normal everyday environment, and just opening up and letting go. And I know that makes it sound really easy. There's a process to get someone to a spot.
It's really intentional. Yeah,
it's really intentional. So if we can just get a group of dads and a group of sons, and you know, slowly but surely each year sort of build and get a bit deeper to the point where, you know, and a goal for me is a measurement of success. If you're going to ask that, Loz, I want to. It's in my head now because my sister's.
Yeah, no, it's in mine too. It's Loz.
But I want to walk down the shops and see a boy that has been, you know, through some of these camps, and I want him to look me in the eye, and I want to shake his hand, and I want to, you know, and that's, for me, it's definitely a community-based thing outside of my own personal wanting my boys to experience it.
I think it also just creates really deep relationships. Like, you know, you and I, we've spoken in the past. I did one when I was 16 that my dad and I did, and it was life-changing.
Yeah.
Like, and it fixed, I don't know if it fixed, but it had a profound impact. And it completely changed our whole relationship from the future.
Yeah.
But very intentional. Like, you go through and there's a process. And I remember the final day when we had to walk up a big hill, and there's a group of men there, and you get brought into the circle, and they all say something they've noticed about you that they admire as like a man. But then when you walk down the hill, you're seen as a man. It's not that you are necessarily, like, that's just the beginning. But the fact that you're seen and you have these men that you look up to
Yeah.
say these things, and you don't normally have men saying that stuff, right? Like we're normally not very good at speaking about our emotions necessarily. I think that's the game changer. But if you also want to do it for girls and mums, I'm very open to support that too, because I do have 3 daughters, so I would love in some way also for the
And a mum. You've got a
I've got a mum too.
Yeah.
And I do remember you mentioned about the mums getting involved. I remember doing the activities with my mum in the lead up to us going away.
Yeah.
With the dads and mum said, I find it really hard to have to let go.
So at the end of this one I was just on, of the whole weekend, the thing that got me, I guess, emotionally, so at the very end, some of them, so it's up in Byron, and you've got fathers and sons from all over the country because it's, you know, it's got such a great reputation. And we hiked back into the community hall where the whole thing kicked off, 5 days earlier. And a lot of the mums that could be there were there. Like, it's obviously hard for the people from interstate. Anyway, they welcomed the mums in and we sang this song, and it was pretty, I couldn't tell you what the words were, but it was basically honouring the mums. And you got all the fathers and sons around and the mums in a circle in the middle. And it just absolutely killed me. Like I didn't know anyone there. Like I had no connection, or wasn't my boys or my wife or whatever. And it was just such a beautiful thing to see them do that to finish, at the end. So that was it. Definitely there is room there for all, everyone and all genders and all that kind of stuff. It's just I find myself more drawn to the men and the boys given my own situation.
You've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I'm just listening to this and I think it's making me really reflect on the idea that, like, what a wild concept to expect people to have a map of success for themselves at 17 or 18.
Yeah.
And everything that you've said, and we see this often, the people's journey towards success shifts so much. But like, to me, it sounds like every experience you've had has been a vehicle to come into a place of seeing what you truly value. And like all the mentors that you've had, you've learnt from, the people that have seen something in you, and you're now at a place where if you hadn't had all these experiences and hadn't had all these people mentor something to you, you wouldn't be able to be the mentor that someone else is going to need at some stage. And you couldn't be who you are now without having all of those things happen to you. And yet we think, do a degree, get a job, and you're ticked.
Yeah.
It's like, no, actually, you have to have all those experiences. You have to be scared. You have to take risks. You have to have a mentor. You have to have someone that maybe does you a bit dirty sometimes and go, oh, okay, that wasn't great. And I can see, as much as you're like, I get so much from other people, I can see how much you want to be that for people now too. Like, I want to go down the street and look someone in the eye and go, look at you, mate. Look how far you've come. And I was a part of that journey for you. But you could never have been this sort of person as a mentor without all of that.
No, 100%.
It's just a crazy thing. And as you say about success, so you talked about your focus for your children is the idea of self-esteem and contentment. And that's so important to you. And yet we are saying, come on, where's your A+?
Yeah. Well, that's another point we haven't, and I'm completely mindful of time. That's another point we haven't even touched on, like this whole gap here where homeschooling our kids. And that's what that has, if I was to put it down to one thing that's made me realise, is just how kids just need different stuff. I've got Sonny that's 10 and Van that's 8, and they do a very similar, we've got them on a very similar homeschooling program, and Van's the kind of kid you put in front of him and 20 minutes later he's done, where Sonny just needs that support, and he needs accountability, and he needs sometimes a firm hand. And you just think, well, if if those 2 kids are in a classroom with 25 people, it's impossible.
Dan and I like,
it just shows you the complexity of teaching, right? Like, and what they know, and they have to understand how kids learn. They have to understand motivation. They have to understand, because also noticing and knowing Sonny a bit is, well, he wants to know, well, why should I bother learning this? Because how's it going to be applied? And therefore, if you can't let someone, whereas sometimes we get people that are a little bit more, I'm learning because you're saying this is important.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
Both are right.
Yeah.
Both have value.
Yeah.
But it's the complexity that we have to deal with as teachers in classrooms or in classrooms at home.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say before we finish up.
Yeah, no, feel free to pass the feedback on here live.
But the other thing I wanted to say was, and I thought you would have asked about this, Dan, but
on freckles.
On on the get rid of it if you can. Now on the
For death.
I can't. So I'm okay. I can't get rid of it.
no. The pre-pod form. The question was something like, what's 3 words that you think about with education? And I said limiting if you don't have it.
Yeah.
And I guess what I want to touch on there is, I don't think I would go back and as much as, I don't think bricklaying is necessary. I haven't used those skills since I hung up the trowel, I don't think, and you learn other skills which have come in handy. But the point is, I don't think bricklaying, if I could go back, would I choose bricklaying again? There'd be other trades I would choose before it. But in saying that, I probably wouldn't, because everything has sort of worked out, right? To your point, I don't think I would change anything because of the way it's worked out. I guess the point I'm trying to make, though, is in this period where we're in this real crossroads, both professionally and personally, and before we'd made the decision with this property, it was like a blank canvas on what we do or what I do next. And some of the things that I'm really into, like, for example, psychology. For me to become a psychologist, the amount of given that I don't have a Year 12 pass, the barriers to that were probably just going to be too big for me at this stage of my life to go. It's not to say it's impossible, but I don't think I would have had enough of the fire in the belly to go back and do all the steps I needed to then eventually get a degree to then start work. So what I would say is, I don't know, and Mel and I haven't had the conversation yet about our boys, but I think that we would have a minimum standard of passing Year 12, as hypocritical as that might sound, coming from me. And Mel, my wife, also only went as far as Year 11. She went into hairdressing, but and Mel's a perfect case in point. She actually, her dream job is to be a teacher, and she's been really close, probably 2 or 3 times, to going down that route. But the amount of study she'd have to do has just ended up, it hasn't been insurmountable, but it's been a lot. So I guess I'm word vomiting, but what I'm trying to say is, having a Year 12 pass would have made things a bit potentially different. Well, they would have given us more options later in life if we did want to go back, get degrees and follow different career paths.
Yeah. And it might open doors. Doesn't guarantee success, but it does open, there's other pathways.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the really helpful thing from you that you're sharing is, even we said, what are the skills? And really you spoke about accessing people around you, being open to actually realize that you don't know everything. So it's less about the skills or the study scores and things like that. That hasn't actually limited you. But what's really interesting too is it all right if I challenge?
Of course.
Offer a slight challenge?
Yeah.
Because before you said the vision, sometimes you can get paralysis by analysis, because you see all the barriers. So I'm just wondering, when it comes to the psychology aspect for you, maybe that vision's not clear enough, or it's not actually a thing that you're wanting, because you then said there's too many things in the way. Whereas with this property and what you've spoken so clearly about it, so maybe it doesn't yet fit into that vision.
I'm healed. Dr. Dan on the couch. I'm healed. No, you're right. You're right.
I'll take that testimonial. Thank you.
No, full disclaimer, Dan is not a doctor. No, I can't argue that. You're right. Probably it's not a motive enough to go stuff the barriers. I'm going to do it anyway. Agreed. Where do I sit on it? I still don't think it's a bad thing to do one more year, in hindsight, to do one more year to get that tick, to be able to then potentially have more options down the...
You're really talking about choice, aren't you?
About choice. Yeah. Again, people have asked me if I'd go back, would I do, for example, bricklaying again? And I can't say no because of where it's taken me. Yeah. So it's complete sliding doors kind of stuff. I guess what I would say, thinking about the listener, the listener, assuming that it's them thinking for their kids, you just want them to, whatever they're doing, to have a crack at it, to really have a crack at it and leave no stone unturned, because it doesn't matter what you end up going into. The technical skill that's the ticket to the game, but it's all the other stuff which is going to make someone successful.
Yeah. And
trying to instill curiosity and work ethic and helping your kids create a vision for their own life, I think is super important.
So a ticket to the game doesn't mean that you can't actually attend. It just means that maybe you've got a bit more choice. And I think you're testament to that, right? Because some people might say that if you don't finish school, then that's it. Like there's only sort of one pathway. You absolutely prove that that's not the case. But listening to what you're saying is, however, if you do finish, it maybe provides some other options or some choices along the way for you too.
I think so. Yeah.
So really lovely segue, because you was talking about learning, the fact around like it not limiting you. So knowing yourself, all that you've got going on, what is something that you're throwing yourself into learning right now?
How to drive a tractor. That's, well, probably actually more accurately is how to fix a tractor up, because there's a couple of old ones on this property which we needed. No, I haven't actually started that, but it all things right now, it's been driving around Australia and all the things that come with that from a car perspective, a caravan perspective, going into new places. Yeah, more so with the commitment of this place. It's going to be all things designing houses and permits, but then building paddock fencing and which I'm excited for. But yeah, it's going to be a lot.
So, lovely listener, if you know a fencer or someone that understands how to fix tractors, genuinely, I think reach out to us at morethanascorepod@gmail.com. But I think, too, for Sam Gawenda, we'll absolutely forward these. Yeah. Because I think something Loz and I really care about is community. Like, that's why we became teachers. That's what we used to love about that. So I think if you do know something, it might sound silly, but I reckon like share through any ideas or suggestions you have. We'll pass them on to the lovely Sam.
Yeah.
Sam Gawenda, thank you so much for joining us. I've been so excited about sharing this story that you've had. If you do know someone else that has a non-linear path, Loz, isn't that right? A non-linear path?
Yeah, is the preference.
Reach out, or you might nominate yourself to join us on this lovely couch. We swear we're definitely not doctors, but we do enjoy a chat.
Do not come here for medical advice.
No, do not come to us for medical advice at all, nor is this therapy. Reach out to us, morethanascorepod@gmail.com. Loz, what is the Insta handle again?
Just morethanascorepod at Insta.
All right, good job. Sam, can we try a crisp high five? I reckon this time, though, you need you and Loz to do it.
Well, I don't know anyone named Loz.
Oh, sorry. Okay, it was good. Good.
You don't think she's going to look at me?
It was way too exciting.
Oh, shit, it's me.
It was way too exciting.
Thank you very much, guys. It's been a great experience, and I hope this helps someone somewhat out there listening.
Good on you, Sam.
Awesome. Woo!